You got to be watching what's happening with realignment going around this country. I noticed this really yesterday because I saw a tweet, I think it was, or maybe it was an Instagram post by my buddy Chris Long, obviously UVA alum as well, won a championship with the Patriots, longtime Ram, really good dude. But there was a post that he was responding to basically saying that the University of Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, and I forget the other one, maybe it was Duke, were looking to join the SEC. And, that just shocked me. I was like, why would those great schools want to leave the ACC and its storied history to join the SEC? This was on the heels of another report that I saw a couple of days prior that the ACC and the Pac-12 were looking to negotiate a potential championship game between their respective conferences that would be played in Vegas, and it'd have some big title to it, and obviously you'd sell TV revenue and things of that nature. Would bring some much needed money to both of these conferences, and it feels desperate. It feels like the ACC and the Pac-12 and even the Big 12 to some extent are desperate to find relevance, and it's happening because college football and college basketball are becoming minor professional sports, right? And I'm not saying it's minor leagues because there's still students, but I can't help but see what's happening in college sports and realize that the only thing that's starting to matter is the revenue that can come from matching the best teams against the best teams. And it's weird to bring this comparison up, but I will because it feels like this is where we're going. Obviously, I've become a big fan. If you listen to me over the last couple of months, I love soccer. I love European soccer, mainly because I found a team in Liverpool that I don't know. They resonate with me. It really started because my brother's a big fan of Manchester United, and he said pick a team and we'll have a rivalry. So I picked Liverpool. He's Man U, and we talk soccer all the time. But the process in Europe is that there are 20 teams in the top league. In England, it's called the English Premier League. And below them are like the championship, which is a lower league. And if you are the top 3 teams of the championship, you get promoted into the Premier League, and the bottom 3 teams of the Premier League get relegated down to the championship. And that's so on and so forth for all the different leagues, League Two and et cetera. I feel like college sports, at least the revenue-producing sports, are pushing towards a system like that, where there are going to be top 20, maybe 30 teams that we talk about and that we see on a regular basis on ESPN, mostly on ESPN, because I think they control most of the TV rights for the major conferences, that we're going to see on ESPN, and everybody else is going to get left by the wayside. It forces the ACC and the Pac-12 to do desperate things, like try to create a championship game that nobody's going to care about, or try to find their way into the SEC, which would feel sacrilegious given how important Duke and North Carolina basketball have been, and Virginia, because of the recent championship, have been for the ACC. It's the mission of the NCAA, which was established many years ago, but really to combat gambling and illegalities in sport, is completely lost. Like the thought of amateurism is completely gone. This is for the revenue sports, and the problem with it going away is that all of the other sports, the rowing and the volleyball and the track and field, these non-revenue producing sports, get kind of cast aside. And all of a sudden, the rivalries and the meaning of being, at an ACC school or a Big Ten school or a Pac-12 school, they kind of just go by the wayside, and it only comes back to money, and that's worrisome for me. And I don't know if I'm gonna love the sport like I did if it feels like it's mini professional. Now, obviously, this has all started with the NIL stuff a year ago. And I had a conversation. I did an event for, I think it was Bank of America. I did an event for Bank of America, and I was interviewing Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, and he was awesome. And one of the questions that I asked him was about NILs. And he gave me a little bit of a history of the NIL that I didn't really know. I guess I kind of remembered it only because of what happened with Michigan. So he told me, back in the 80s, most basketball players, and I guess other sports stars, sports as well, football, etc., used to host camps. So the kid would host a camp, or the school would put on a camp. The kids would show up. The basketball players would show up. They'd get a couple $1,000s. And, over the course of a summer, they'd make, $5 or $10, maybe $15,000 being these camp counselors, these basketball camp counselors. And it was kind of like NIL. Right, they were making money using their association with the school's brand and the fact that they were a star player, and the local kids would come in and they'd hang out with them, and it was like NILs. Well, the University of Michigan did the same thing with the Fab Five, but the difference was that these kids at the Fab Five started making like tens of thousands of dollars, like 20, 50, maybe $100,000 doing this same thing. And the NCAA didn't know what to do about it. And so they penalized them and they cut these camps off. And so the problem with cutting them off was that the growth of this NIL, this pre-NIL, NIL, it was happening still. Like guys were still getting paid. They were still doing all these things. It was just under the table. And so NILs grew year over year over year outside of the view or the purview or the oversight of the NCAA. It just kept growing to the point where you get a federal FBI investigation on illegally paying college athletes. And the numbers were enormous. I mean, you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of dollars that these athletes were asking of universities to get their kids to commit to play. And so all of a sudden, the NCAA realizes, well, we got to change. And NILs get instituted. And so as soon as these NILs get instituted, what do we see? We see millions of dollars being handed out to college football players and to college basketball players who are likely to head to the NBA or the NFL. And the reason it seems so high is because back in the 80s, when it started at $5,000 or $10,000, the natural appreciation is that it would grow to a couple of million over time. The problem is we didn't see it. It was happening illegally, and the NCAA overreacted to the Fab Five and to the Dukes of the world. These kids making $15,000, $20,000 in the summer doing these camps. They overreacted, and as a result, the black market, so to speak, took over. And now that there is no black market, the black market is in plain sight, and that's what we're seeing in NILs, right? So the professionalism of college sports has been going on for a long time. It's just now really front and center. And the thing that's disturbing is that the educational mission of bringing student athletes to colleges and universities for the revenue sports, it feels gone, man. It feels like it's minor league sports. And we crave it. We embrace it. We love it. We jump all over it. It's why ESPN pays $30 million or $300 million to the SEC or whatever they pay to the Big Ten and what they pay to the ACC. It's disturbing, mainly because when you look at all of the other sports that are just going to get left behind, and who's caring for them? Because the NCAA is basically feckless at this point. 877-337-6666. Taking your calls here on the Yankees, but that's just something that came through my purview over the last couple of weeks. This realignment, it's killing me to think about what it's going to mean. Let's get Scott, who's in Bayville, New Jersey. What's up, Scott?
Tiki, love your work, love your play.
Appreciate you.
The NIL thing, yeah, I think it's going to blow up, right? And here's a scenario. If I'm that player, that quarterback that's getting $1 million,
yep,
and you're the third string quarterback or the second string tackle, There's a separation between us that can't be denied. And that can't create a healthy team atmosphere.
That's right.
Think about the living quarters I'm going to have, the car that I'm going to have.
That's exactly right.
And Tiki, here's where I think the problem becomes: the parties that I'm going to throw. Right? It's too much money for an 18, 19-year-old kid to manage.
I agree.
And that money is going to be spent in a lot of wasteful ways. And I think those wasteful ways are going to affect two people: A, the kid that has too much money, and then B, the kid that gets caught up in that party.
Yeah, no, you're right. Parties are probably the minor, like the smallest thing, right? It's just there's so many other ways that this destroys team chemistry, like the purity of the amateur team sport in college. It gets crushed by money, and guys are already taking advantage of this and manipulating it. So you know the story of Quinn Ewers, who's now the quarterback at Texas. He left his high school early. He goes to Ohio State solely to get an NIL deal. He didn't play at all because of C.J. Stroud, and then he transfers to Texas, right? So he basically, I don't want to say stole money but he wasn't going to play for Ohio State. He took the deal to go make $2 or $3 million to leave school or high school early and manipulate the system. And now he's at the University of Texas, where he's probably going to have another NIL deal, a different NIL deal. That is until Arch Manning comes and takes his job, because Arch Manning committed to the University of Texas. I mean, it's gotten to the point where you hear head coaches, and Ryan Day said this, and it was just shocking that he said it. He said he admitted this. He had I don't know if it was a news conference, but he was just talking about the NIL situation. He said he told his boosters they needed $3 to $5 million to make this class happen. It's just like, what are you talking about, right? We need a pool of money, $3 to $5 million, to sign this incoming freshman class, which is just asinine to think about. And the problem. I think the challenge will be for these companies that are paying these NILs. How are you measuring your return, right? How do you know that a guy that you pay $100,000 or $1 million to, how do you know if that's actually benefiting your brand in a responsible way? It's almost like it's the wild, wild west. And if it's not really about the return, then why pay the kid? And so it's just. It gets frustrating to think about where college sports is heading, revenue college sports, because I think all the other sports are fine, right? Those sports are still going to be what we always have watched, and the competitive nature of it. That is until the conferences go away and the rivalries go away, and all of a sudden, college sports just feels different.